Have you ever been knocked down by the circumstances of life? You know, life can be brutally tough sometimes. Ask me how I know? Well, I've been knocked down in a boxing ring in the middle of a boxing match. I've had the breath knocked out of me in a football game, and that didn't feel good. And when I was 6 or 7 years of age and was a helpless child, I had a man sexually assault me in a bathroom stall. All of that was very painful. But none of it was as painful as losing my first wife to cancer in 2001. I was so low, I was so depressed that I actually contemplated suicide. You know, and someone once said, you may not be somebody in this world, but to somebody you are the world, so don't quit. And you see, my daughter and my granddaughter were still alive, and I knew that they needed me, and that gave me the strength to carry on. Friend, I don't care what you're going through. I don't care how many times you've been knocked down. I don't care how much pain you've suffered. There is hope and there is help for you. We have a group of men here, and if you're battling some issue today, some pain, you want to throw in a towel, you want to quit, you want to chuck it all, I want you to call us and help us talk you through this, and let us help you. The number's right here on the screen. Give us a call today and let us help you overcome whatever you're going through.
In 1995, there was two coaches, Les Steckel and Sherman Smith. Les Steckel was my receiver coach, and Sherman Smith was the running back coach.
Joining us today on In Your Corner, former professional football player Chris Sanders. He was a star at Ohio State University and went to the Super Bowl with the Tennessee Titans. His compelling story coming up next.
I remember one time I went to go speak to a youth group, and I'm not even saved.
Right, yeah.
And Les Steckel and Sherman Smith came up to me and they said, you know, how are you going to speak to these guys and your life is not adding up to what you're saying?
You're anything like me, a dreamer, when I was playing high school football, I dreamed about playing in a stadium like LP Field. And I wasn't big enough, I wasn't fast enough like 98% of the rest of America. But there was a gentleman by the name of Chris Sanders that not only played on this field but caught touchdowns on this very field behind us, played in the Super Bowl, caught touchdown passes from quarterback Steve McNair. Today on In Your Corner, Chris talks about his football career and his relationship with the quarterback Steve McNair. Be sure to watch In Your Corner. We're joined on In Your Corner today by former NFL player Chris Sanders. Chris,
that makes me sound old.
Saying former?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
You were with the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, I played for 8 years. I got drafted in 1995. You know, we were known as the Houston Oilers then, and I think it was 1997 to 98. That's when we became the Tennessee Titans, and it was a great transition. I mean, I was one of those guys that was just excited to play in the NFL. We could have played in somebody's backyard. I was just excited just to play in the NFL.
How does somebody make it into the NFL? There's such a small percentage.
Small. It's 1%. I mean, 1% of people in the world make it in the NFL, so you're going against the elite people every week. So
3rd and 6. Here comes the blitz. McNair gets the pass away for a first down. Chris Sanders down the sidelines, and Sanders dives in for the touchdown.
I would visualize myself catching the ball in an NFL game, and I would just pray and say, God, you know, one day I want to play in the NFL. And God was so funny that He answered my prayers in 1995. And it's funny because I have a picture of me catching my first touchdown in this exact same way that I was catching the sock as a young kid. So it's funny just to say that.
You were visualizing it when you were a young man.
Yeah.
What does it take to become, well, I suppose even a Division I college football player takes a lot of talent, doesn't it?
It takes a lot. I mean, you got to stay focused. I mean, you got to be athletic because, you know, in your town, you're the best in your town. But you got to remember, when you go to a college, they're the best of the best. So, you know, it's going to take hard work and, you know, willing to do the little things that a lot of people don't want to do. I heard a quote from Jerry Rice that said this. It says, "I do what others won't do today so that I can accomplish what others can accomplish tomorrow." And sometimes it takes that. I mean, it takes working out and, you know, not wanting to quit and all that stuff that goes on. But it was a blessing to make it.
Well, yeah, that's something that kids dream of.
Man.
And I knew when I was in junior high school and high school, I wasn't going to be big enough or fast enough. What does it, if there's a young man out there that has talent, Chris, what would you say to him to do to try and make it into the league?
See, the thing about it is, it's not about how big you are. It's about how big a heart you have.
Yeah.
It's not about, there's a quote that I say, it's not the size of the ship, it's the motion of the ocean.
Amen.
You know, it's one of my favorite players that I played with a while ago named Derrick Mason, probably the smallest receiver in the NFL. But the one thing that I love is he has a tenacity and he has a heart to be the best. And that's what it takes. I mean, you gotta do the little things, work hard, listen to your parents, listen to your coaches, do all those things to become the great player that you can.
Yeah, and you were Ohio State.
Ohio State.
The Ohio State. Did you play for Woody Hayes? Or?
No, I ain't that old. No, I played for John Cooper. I played for him for 4 years, and he was one of the best coaches I've ever had, and we had some great times there.
Well, it's a great college. And of course, you were wide receiver in the NFL?
Yes.
And you played with Eddie George and Steve McNair.
Yes, me and Eddie George played at Ohio State together also, and then I'm a year in front of him, and then he came that next year, but we played together for 7 or 8 years, and just watching this guy play, he was one of the best players I've ever seen. And
you guys were in the Super Bowl.
Whew, there's another dream that came to pass, just you know, watching one of my dreams being fulfilled, and we made it in 1999, and the year before that we were 7-9. So to come back that next year and make it into the Super Bowl and play the St. Louis Rams was probably one of the best dreams come true that I've ever had.
Yeah, and you guys were so close.
Oh, 1 yard short.
Winning that game.
It was close, but you know, as I look at the whole scenario, yeah, we lost the game, but I actually won because, you know, there's a lot of guys that play in the NFL that never made the Super Bowl. And I have a chance to tell people that I made it into the Super Bowl.
You were in the Super Bowl.
In the Super Bowl, and
yes,
actually
sir.
played in a game that people dream to play in. So I'm not sad. I'm excited because I can tell people that one of my dreams came true.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know, we mentioned Steve McNair, and what a great player, but what a tragic story. What can you tell us about him and his life and the tragedy that happened there?
On the football side, this guy was a warrior. I mean, I watched this guy in the huddle to where his fingers was broke, his sternum was hurting real bad, 2 ankles hurting, but this guy did everything it took to win. I mean, he had a heart like a lion. He'll run into a brick wall and come back the next play and make plays. You know, on the personal side, you know, just like I said before, I'm sorry. If I can ever see him again, I would like to say I'm sorry because I focus so much on him being a football player as opposed to just telling him about his life and helping him in his life. And, you know, I apologize to him for doing that.
Because you didn't help him overcome
some
of the things that he was going through.
I mean, I never had a chance to really speak into his life. You know, we talked X's and O's and, you know, run this post and run this slant route, but I never really talked about life skills of life. And, you know, we focus so much on that as players, but we never deal with the personal side because we think it's vulnerable if we open ourselves up to another guy.
And men are like that, aren't they? They're afraid to ask for help.
It is. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're soft or weak. That means that you're smart because you need help. And, you know, I thank God for Jesus so much because he saw me at my weakest stage and he stepped out of eternity and met me where I was at. So I'm so thankful for that.
Well, you're talking about your faith, and we'll go back there in a minute because you have an amazing story of coming to Christ.
Yes.
But, you know, right now, take us into that NFL huddle where you're getting ready to run around. What is Steve McNair saying to you and Eddie George when you're in the huddle? Of course, there's not a lot of time.
I mean, just like I said, Steve McNair, he's calling the plays, and he's telling me, Chris, look at the defense, watch the safety and all that stuff like that. But when he's calling the play, my heart jumps because I'm nervous. I'm like, okay, I got to get in the right spot. I got to make a play. But it's a situation to where it's intense in the huddle and also on the field. So it's something that's really fun.
Yeah. What's the difference in playing in NFL and playing in, let's say, high school? Is it size? Is it speed?
It's everybody's fast. I mean, even the mascots are fast. I mean, everybody's fast. I mean, you got guys like Ray Lewis, that's a linebacker that's running 4.5, 4.6s that, you know, opposed to back in the day, they're running 5 flats. Every position is fast. You got offensive linemen, you know, rush ends that are just as fast as receivers now. So that's the difference between high school, college, and the NFL.
Yeah. Well, you know, a moment ago you mentioned your faith in Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you were sorry because you didn't say something to Steve McNair, who lost his life in that tragic shooting accident. You know, tell us how you came to know Christ.
In 1995, there was two coaches, Les Steckel and Sherman Smith. Les Steckel was my receiver coach, and Sherman Smith was the running back coach. And they saw my life. They knew that I was a great football player, but they knew that something was missing. And I was one of those guys that would pound my chest and point to the sky and say, "Oh, I like the Jesus Christ and Lord and Savior of my life." But then they looked at my life and it wasn't consistent to what I was saying. So I remember one time, I went to go speak to a youth group, and I'm not even saved.
Right, yeah.
And Les Steckel and Sherman Smith came up to me, and they said, you know, how are you going to speak to these guys and your life is not adding up to what you're saying? And from that day on, Les Steckel and Sherman Smith sat me down and said, if you keep living the life that you're living, you're going to end up in destruction. And I said, Lord, what do I do to be saved? And they led me to the Lord, and the sky was the limit from there.
Amen. Well, folks, we'll be back in just a minute with more of Chris's amazing story.